Well, the Saudi-led coalition began its military campaign in Yemen in March 2015. That was after the Houthi rebels and supporters of the former leader Ali Abdullah Saleh pushed out the government of President Abdurrabbi Mansour Hadi. Saleh was Yemen's president for 33 years. He was forced to resign in February 2012 after months of unrest and handed power over to his deputy of 18 years, Hadi. But Hadi's time in power was relatively short. In January 2015, Houthi rebels took over government buildings in the capital, forcing Hadi to flee to Saudi Arabia. Hadi is still the internationally recognized leader of Yemen, and the Saudi-led coalition has been fighting to restore him to power. The Houthis are led by Abdul Malik al-Houthi. His movement largely promotes Yemen's Zaidi Shia minority and is backed by Iran. Well, they support Saleh's forces, but there's been fighting between the two sides in recent days. Andreas Krieg is assistant professor at the Defence Studies Department at King's College London. He joins us now on set. So it's a rather confusing situation. We had the statements, we've had the fighting, I should say, first for the last few days between Saleh forces and the Houthis. We had the statements yesterday by Saleh, which he seemed to be moving closer to the Saudi coalition. And now Saleh's party saying they want to reconcile with the Houthis. Who's on whose side?
That's the big question. But, you know, Yemen has always been a dance on a snake's head, as Saleh said himself. So alliances are shifting quite quickly, and it doesn't really matter. Saleh is someone who is now been dealing with all different sides in order to stay in power. He's the one who seems to be the most sustainable patron in this country of different power bases. So he was able to work with the Houthis at some point, working with the Emiratis, working with the Saudis. You know, he's using whatever is necessary to stay in power. And he, behind the scenes, even though Hadi was one of the guys who was in front and was supposed to be the president of the country, he was still in the back. Saleh was still in the back pulling the strings. So he is a guy who managed to play that game perfectly, and now coming out on top after 5 years, or after pretty much after the Arab Spring, after 6 years of infighting and thousands of dead people. So it is very hard to say who will come out, who in the end will call the shots. But Saleh is definitely going to be the one who's going to be on top after all of this.
We've got to also talk about this missile, this claim of a missile attack on Abu Dhabi. The Houthis are saying they fired a cruise missile. Is this being seen as credible?
Well, I mean, there are pictures on Twitter saying, you know, there are different pieces falling out of the sky in northern Yemen that were supposed to go to Abu Dhabi. A cruise missile would not go all the way to Abu Dhabi. So we were talking about ballistic missiles.
And do the Houthis have cruise missile capabilities? Not only a question of the technology, but the ability to operate such a system?
The interesting thing is, they were relying, the Houthis were in partnership with Ali Abdullah Saleh for the last 2 years, and his forces loyal to Ali Abdullah Saleh are the National Guard, and the National Guard are those who actually had always the control over the ballistic missile system. So there were ballistic missiles in the country that the Houthis didn't know how to operate, but they had support from operatives from Iran, and they had support from the National Guard. So the missiles do exist.
But cruise is a bit different from your sort of Scud ballistic missile, right?
Exactly. So they wouldn't have the reach to go all the way to Abu Dhabi. I think this is a media stunt, a narrative stunt, trying to, you know, wind everybody up and showing that they have the intent to very much disrupt, which in the end, I don't think A, they have the intent, and B, they don't have the capability, because they would need a ballistic missile to do that. And that would be a game changer. Had they fired a ballistic missile towards Abu Dhabi, that would have completely changed the environment in Yemen, bringing other people to the table, including the Americans in the West, because that would be completely unacceptable.
We're talking about changing the environment. I mean, do you see an opportunity for pro-Saleh forces to ever make some kind of reconciliation with the Houthis after all of the fighting that's been over the last few days in Sana'a?
It always depends on who wants to win. There are different, so it's a patronage system where Ali Abdullah Saleh was always the primus inter pares, but there are other people in there who will call the shots as well. I do think that there is an opportunity now, if Ali Abdullah Saleh gets embraced by especially the Emiratis and the Saudis, to come out on top and play their, you know, be their protege, be their proxy to fight, that bring the war at least in Sana'a to an end. It won't bring the whole war in Yemen to an end, because the Houthis will just go back into guerrilla mode and insurgency mode and continue fighting in the north in the same way that they have done pre-2001, pre-2015, which means the Yemen war won't be solved, but the Saudis can go and say, look, we liberated Sana'a because it's no longer under Iranian proxy control.
All right, Andreas Krieg, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, the